This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and today we're looking at the HP Folio 13. This is HP's first Ultrabook. It runs on Intel CPU, all Intel inside for the most part, and we're going to take a look at it now. This is the HP Folio 13. This is a 13.3-inch Ultrabook from HP. Like all the other Ultrabooks so far, it runs on Intel platform, and you can get it with a Core i5 ULV CPU. That means ultra low voltage, running at 1.6 gigahertz. Currently, HP does not offer an i7 option or an i3 option, which means pretty much the price is what the price is. There's very little variation. If you get the quick ship model, which this is, the 1020 US, comes with Windows 7 Home Premium, 128 gig SSD, that Core i5 CPU, and 4 gigs of DDR3 RAM soldered to the motherboard. If you buy it online and customize it, you can go up to Windows 7 Professional, and you can get a different wireless card. Now here's the confusing and interesting thing. If you looked at this guy on HP's website, you're thinking about buying it, it says it's Intel Advanced and wireless with integrated Bluetooth. But if you get this quick ship model right here, this 1020 US, it actually has Broadcom Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and I just want to point that out. Not that I have anything against Broadcom wireless, but that means that the Broadcom version is only single band N, and it does not support Intel wide-eye wireless display. So that's pretty much the other option that you get, or not even an option. If you just do a build to order, you will get Intel integrated Wi-Fi according to HP. Get that Windows 7 Professional option, and you can add a fingerprint scanner with a TPM module. This guy right here does not have that. HP lists this for $8.99 on their website after a $30 instant discount, but retailers around us, Staples, Fry's, Micro Center, all of them carry this model, and they're selling it for $950. So what's up with that? Not quite sure, but it's a bit more expensive actually if you buy it in the store rather than direct from HP. The Folio's big selling points compared to other Ultrabooks are its longer battery life and a very good keyboard. This is a very typing-friendly keyboard. So as you can see, you have reasonably large keys, nice spacing in between the keys, and there's more key travel and key height than on some other Ultrabooks. That's the problem with Ultrabooks, because they're so skinny, there's not much room for a whole lot of key travel. But in the case of the HP, well, it's a little bit thicker at 18 millimeters than some other Ultrabooks, and a little bit heavier, 3.3 pounds versus 3 pounds on average, down to even 2.5 for the lightest one, which is a Toshiba Portage Z830 and Z835. But what you get here, this is for you people who are on the road and you need to do a lot of typing. You're definitely going to like this better than the Asus ZenBook UX31, which is a lovely Ultrabook, but nasty for typing. And even the Toshiba Portage, not a good typing experience at all. This one, and the Dell XPS 13, my two favorite keyboards. Lenovo would come in third with their U300S. Now, how does HP achieve that long battery life? Well, they've got a nice 6-cell battery in here that's sealed inside, and we'll take a walk around in a minute so you can see what it looks like. But the other thing is they tone down on the performance a little bit. This guy scores 89.15 on PC Mark Vantage, and that's about 1,000 points lower than the Dell XPS 13 and the Asus ZenBook UX31, also running on the Core i5 CPUs, and also MacBook Air on this Core i5 as well. So they've toned down the performance, and the other thing they've done, they put up a nice enough LCD on here. It's TN LED backlit, so the viewing angles are not super wide, but really it's not bad. Color saturation is good, but brightness is abysmal on this. Now, if you're going to use this indoors in subdued lighting, it's not a problem. If you're going to take this out in bright locations, or a very bright office, it's going to be a problem because you're going to notice glare, you're going to notice a lot of reflections because the backlighting isn't enough to combat that. And it averages about 140 nits brightness. To give you an idea, the XPS 13 is close to 300 nits of brightness, and so is the MacBook Air, and the ZenBook is the brightest of them all, pushing closer to 363 or so. That's what you're giving up for that long battery life of 9.25 claimed hours, and real life about 7, maybe a little bit more, depending on where you're setting your brightness. Trust me, you're not going to be setting it that low, and what you're doing with it. But say you're using web, using Office, that kind of stuff, even some light Photoshop work. You notice that it has a very narrow bezel, and that's cool. Narrow bezels are very in. Nobody likes to look at lots of metal around the frame of the display. But you'll also notice, see the big black border here on the glass? Kind of weird, right? Kind of negates the beauty of having a narrow hardware bezel here when you've got so much of an inset around here. So the size of the panel is what it is, and really just HP decided not to conceal it and show you some more of that black there. But in terms of color and contrast, this is actually a nice display. Now that we picked on the brightness, I like it quite well for that. It is a glossy display. There is no matte option, so of course you will have to deal with the reflections. Got your webcam up here, and now we'll take a look around the machine. The display opens fairly to a wide angle, as you can see here, which is nice, wider certainly than the Dell XPS 13 and some others that, because of this lid overhang on the back here, they often interfere and hit. But HP did a good job, so you can tip this guy pretty far back. From the side view, you can see it's not exactly ultra thin, but you know, it's still thinner than any other normal non-Ultrabook notebook on the market. You have a single USB 2.0 port on this side. Here's your headphone jack, 3.5mm combo. The bottom is genuine plastic, and I'm not going to complain about that too much. It's nice, rubbery, soft touch. It stays relatively cool compared to metal, and it feels good. It's not so slippery, so it's okay by me. You can see there's heat vents over here. There's also some right behind the display where it exhausts out. More again here. Runs fairly cool, not too quiet. You do hear the fan, but it's not obnoxiously loud. And there's about a bazillion, really more, I think it was 18 I counted or something, teeny little Phillips head screws here, so if you wanted to take it apart you could, but there's not a whole lot of user serviceable parts inside. It doesn't have the removable battery unless you really want to dismantle it. RAM is soldered onto the motherboard, that kind of thing, but you got your mSATA drive and your wireless card and stuff like that if you want to attack it. How that affects your warranty, I don't know. This side we have more ports. This is the charging port right here. You have Ethernet built in. That's nice because a lot of notebooks leave that out. With the ZenBook you get an external dongle. The XPS 13 doesn't have it at all. MacBook Air, obviously you need a dongle too. Full-size HDMI port, that's nice. No display port or anything like that, so you can't drive super high-resolution large monitors, but you can drive HDMI TVs and monitors, no problem. And here's your USB 3.0 port. It's not blue, to give you a hint about that, but... And here's the SD card slot, and obviously we have a little blinking light here to let you know that it is sleeping. And HP very faintly has marked what everything is on the underside, so if you forget which USB port is which USB port, just look for the SS for high-speed port for the USB. Here's the front view, and you've got a nice little grab handle here on the lid so you can grab a hold of it, and the lid is aluminum, nice looking. Understated, basic looking, I don't mind it at all. And here's your back view, relatively small hinges, but they're stiff and sturdy enough. Another nice creature comfort with the HP is backlit keyboard. It's pretty bright, and there's a lot of light that comes out around the keys as well as lighting up the letters themselves. Not as pretty and fancy as some of the discrete lighting that HP's used, say with the HP NV15, where each key is individually backlit with an LED and it looks really, really cool, but that's okay. Good enough, it does the job. It's whitish, bluish backlighting that you can see very easily in the dark, and then there's a key here to turn it on and off. Speaking of the FN keys, you do not need to hit the FN actually to use things like the brightness controls, the volume, and all that kind of thing. And this has Dolby audio inside, no Beats audio because this is sort of a semi-businessy product, but my goodness, for an Ultrabook, these speakers are very loud and very full. I mean, like, really, really loud. You're not going to need to plug this into separate speakers if you're going to watch a movie or something like that. As I mentioned, the 128 gig SSD is your only option right now for hard drive capacity. And it's a Samsung SSD, and that's good because they make fast ones, but the funny thing is, it scored pretty well in PC Mark Vantage. It scored about 22,000, which sounds really impressive because it's so much faster than conventional spinning hard drives, but somehow the Dell XPS 13 managed to score over 40,000 using a Samsung SSD. So it's interesting to see the different tuning with the motherboard and all that kind of stuff and the performance they're trying to get out of a device, the variation. With that 128 gig SSD drive, we have about 67 gigs free and available to us. Now there's a restore partition on here, and you brave folks can go ahead and make your restore DVDs and then whack that to gain some more space, and that's a little bit lower than the class average, where we see often closer to 80 gigs free. That may be because HP bundles a lot of software on here. We're surprised for an Ultrabook that's one of their premier experience devices. There's a lot of stuff on here. Now some of it's just web shortcuts, like you've got that shortcut to eBay, Zynga games are over here. You've got Wild Tangent games that are pre-installed. Bleo Reader. Antivirus trial is installed by default, Norton. And then lots of other HP stuff. We've got the HP Video Store in here. We've got a whole lot of HP management update stuff. We've got their HP downloading application. So there's a good amount of stuff on here you can clear off, too, to get some more space. And, of course, the usual Office 2010 Starter Edition is on here. You can enter your product key if you want to use the full version, otherwise just use Word and Excel in the Starter Edition format. In terms of performance, though it's not the fastest Ultrabook on the block, it still has quite good numbers, and it's absolutely just fine, more than capable of handling everyday office things. Web browsing, email, even YouTube playback, MS Office, Photoshop work. It can handle that. If I wanted to play some moderate or casual games, it probably wouldn't be my first choice since it's not the fastest, most tuned for speed Ultrabook on the block, but for really casual games like Wild Tangent games, it's fine, just fine. Crisis 2, don't even think about it. Of course, this can handle, as I said, YouTube and Hulu and all that kind of stuff, and we're going to give that a try right now so you can see. One thing I would say, the trackpad, very nice for multi-touch, a good feeling surface, pretty much like the NB15 again that we recently reviewed in that respect. This part is a great experience. You can see it's being responsive to multi-touch, it's behaving, but the buttonless trackpad, these so-called buttonless, they actually do click. You can probably hear that. These things are so stiff, you're going to dislocate your thumb joint. I don't know what HP was thinking with that, so it's a shame because it really mars an otherwise very nice experience. Palm rejection is pretty good with this, and then there's a little spot here that's outlined. You can double tap on that to turn off the trackpad if you find you're hitting it too often. Let's check out some Hulu video. Keyboard is very quiet also, which is nice. No rattly, no clacky thing. It feels very nice and cushioned, and there's no flex here. I mean, if you press down, it moves just a little bit. They're always going to move a little bit, but definitely no trampolining here. And we'll just pick something that's featured here. And you can hear those absolutely phenomenal speakers by Ultrabook standards.
The following
we're only at half volume
with
now.
limited commercial interruption by Miramax on Hulu Plus.
I hate guys. I love women. Stop getting the down! You want to play fun little games? Come on, you nasty little cute little babe.
And now we've got it going at 480p.
Precious substance in all the land.
Plays just fine. Fan is not being too obnoxiously loud.
Powers the world. This is the year's supply.
So it works fine with Hulu.
Cautious, I know. Because next year, you'll be doing this alone.
Also works for locally stored content. Obviously there's no DVD drive built in, so if you're on the road on an airplane, you got to preload some MPEG-4 or WMV files of your choice, or I suppose you could hit the HP movie store too. HP would love that. The notebook can handle, again, Adobe Photoshop just fine. Even with Intel HD 3000 integrated graphics, that's good enough for most folks. I mean, if you're working with seriously huge images and advanced filter effects, and I'm talking 50 megs or more, you might be wishing to have dedicated graphics, but when I work with 20 meg RAW files on this, I have no problems even applying filters and all that kind of thing, and I don't mind giving up a second here and there just for the portability and convenience of using this machine. Stays relatively cool too, doing everyday business tasks. The CPU temperature is around 45 centigrade, 100 is the max allowed, so that's pretty cool, and the fan again it's going, you can hear it, but it's not too super loud. Even playing Flash video, which used to kind of toast up computers, nowadays Flash is pretty well optimized for good hardware acceleration, and it doesn't really work too hard at it. Fine for Office, fine for Excel, light development work. Clearly not a gaming system, not a Series 3D workstation, but for 2D graphics, Adobe Illustrator, various things like that, works just fine. So really, it's more than capable enough to be the average person's primary machine. If you have great need to do demanding tasks, again, like 3D rendering or 1080p video editing, that kind of thing, then Ultrabook isn't your best choice. But for just about everything else that most of us do, it's really quite capable, which is neat. You plug this guy into an external monitor using the HDMI port, and you've got a really nice desktop setup when you bring this back from the road. So that's the HP Folio 13. It's available now. Starts at, well, according to HP on their website, $8.99, but if you see it in stores, it's going to cost you $9.50. And it's a nice Ultrabook. Honestly, there really aren't any not nice Ultrabooks. And for around $1,000 a piece, they should be pretty nice machines. The only one that I hesitate to recommend is the Acer Aspire, because that one has a conventional spinning hard drive, and that one feels an awful lot slower too, and it's pretty darn plasticky. So for the $100 cost savings you're making there, not so much worth it. With the HP, you get a good solid machine. You get no flex on the body here. Good looking enough. It's not flashy. It's not like, ooh, gorgeous like the ZenBook or the MacBook Air, that kind of thing, but not bad looking at all. A little bit heavier at 3.3 pounds. And again, you're giving up a bit on the display. It is really not very bright, and that's a shame. And that's one thing that holds us back from recommending it more strongly. Performance, a little bit lower than other Ultrabooks. Again, it's not super duper, a whole lot lower, and it still gets good scores and behaves pretty well. But HP's focus on getting you long battery life here is to blame. So it's too bad in a way that we can't kind of crank up the settings if we want to get more strong performance. But this is for you guys who are road warriors who need to do basic office tasks. You don't need the most cutting edge speed you can possibly squeeze out of an Ultrabook, but you do need long battery life. This guy will give you that. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Visit our website for the full review, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.